Eustis, Florida. It's Flonstock and Lakeside, and there was a hospital here years ago. They've changed it to 2 big houses. My name is Marcus Orrin Williams II. I was born here on March the 26th, 1914. This is Eustis, Florida.
Your name?
I have no idea at what age the name Buster was put on my shoulders, but it had to be at a young age.
You don't ever remember them calling you Mark?
No. I just remember I was full of energy, go all the time.
You weren't a troublemaker, were you?
I don't know. I'm trying to recall some of that. Maybe I shouldn't recall it. They're still coming. Pharmacists in different towns around here. I think he had 6 or 7 at one time.
It's your dad you're talking about?
Yeah. See, he had graduated from that Sparks pharmacy school up there in Georgia, and so he had some buddies. When they graduated, he brought them down here and set them up in business.
So he was the one in Mount Dora, the first pharmacy your dad owned?
First one he owned.
And
now he worked in Jacksonville for a while and worked in Eustis for a while. And that's where he met Mother when he was working over there in Eustis. He was working for a Dr. Taylor.
And he opened the one downtown Mount Dora in 1914?
1914.
And then he died in?
1926.
Wow. So how old was he when he died?
Well, he was born in 1891, so that's 9 years plus
26. He was
plus
only
24.
Yeah. So he was 33.
Yeah, 33 or 32.
Good gosh. So here we are in downtown Mount Dora, and on the corner of 5th and Donnelly, that's where my grandfather's pharmacy was.
With Mother and Daddy back, and they had a apartment rented up there. I don't know how long we lived there, but I know he wanted to get out as soon as he could.
This is the corner of 4th and Donnelly in Mount Dora, and this is what was the Ray Baum's Hardware for the longest time. And they lived up here. Now, what years would have that been that you lived up there in an apartment?
Well, it would have been 1914 when I was born, and I would think in a couple of years we moved up to this other place. Now, the drugstore was on this side, this entrance right here, and there was a hardware store on the others right next to it. A petition, if you went in there now, you'd put a petition right down the middle of it. I don't know how far back Daddy went, because you had to store a lot of stuff back in those days to be in the hardware business like they were. I can remember the back of the church and out 8th Avenue. I can't remember but one thing really. Well, 2 things. It was the end of the war, and Uncle Harry was home, Mother's brother. And he had his uniform, and I had to have a uniform. And that's where I was circumcised. And there were steps upstairs to the room, and old Dr. Hannum come around and circumcised me. And shit, I must have been 4 years old.
Yipes.
And I don't know whether I knew, but I knew something. I fought them. God almighty damn, and they were trying to knock me out with ether or whatever they used in those days. And they finally got me down and got it done. The doctor, I heard them talking about it later. Miss Irene was the white nurse that we had, and she says, Buster, just listen. I guess she's trying to shut me up at the same time. I heard him talking, the doctor telling us that I never had to give any child that much to knock him out. And I fought going up the stairs. I didn't know what the hell they were going to do, but I didn't want to do it.
I don't blame you.
I'm not sure what year it was, but it had to be from about probably 2 to 5, somewhere along in there.
So 1916 to 1921 you lived in this house?
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
And you said there were chicken coops out back?
Yeah, and I remember a big fuss. Daddy had friends that liked to play poker and shoot crap, and Mother was gone one time, and they all had a party and had chickens and whatnot, and they weren't supposed to bother my chickens. I didn't know I was interested in them at that time, and when Mother came home, she saw the nicks in the table where the dice had been thrown, and all hell was raised. Shortly after this, we moved down to back of the Congregational Church. There was a 2-story building down there, and I don't.
That's gone now.
That would have been about maybe 6 to 8. But that 8 years old when we moved out on 8th Avenue.
All right, we'll go see that.
Ashamed of her son, and Grandpa was, of course, proud of him. He wouldn't believe anything they said against him. And
This is talking about your dad?
no, talking about Uncle Harry, her son, grandmother, Grandma Harris.
Wait, now Grandma Harris?
That's Mother's mother.
Oh, your mother's mother. Okay, got you now.
And I think he got in some kind of trouble and had a dishonorable discharge.
Your grandfather?
Uncle.
Oh, your uncle, okay.
Because grandmother told me later about it. Just her discussions of when she's talking with me, and to be truthful and honest about things that were going on. I said her son was not, and there was no way they were going to change him, and Grandpa let him get by with murder.
And what was this son's name?
Harry.
Oh, Harry Harris.
That's the one they named brother.
Your brother after. Okay.
Well, we're on 8th Avenue, going east.
And what was the road like back then?
It was pure sand and ruts. You got in a rut, you had to stay in it to get going. If you met somebody, you were having problems. School was, of course, right over there. But when we moved out here, I was not old enough to go to school at that time. don't remember the first grade. I remember the third grade.
You went to school at Roseboro, didn't you?
Yeah.
Any particular teachers you remember?
Oh, Lord, yeah. You don't forget teachers down in those. Rosemary Ringo. Quite a few I can't call right now, but I will. Now, we lived on the right-hand side out here in this house. And this is where my daddy died. In that particular house right there. Now, let me get back here. Worried about cars coming along here now. The bedroom for the 4 kids was out to the left out there. This was the front room, and then a dining room, and then the kitchen was on the back. And there was a little garage is still there. It looked like a 2-car garage or something. Somebody's changed it quite a bit.
So this is 1326 8th Avenue in Mount Dora. And your dad died in 1926. 26.
January the 5th. And shortly after that we moved in with grandmother. Because we lost this house and lost some lots that we had. And
you were 10 years old at the time?
Well, 1926, you see, I would have been 12 in March.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 11 years old. Just say it's 12 before we moved out of here. And I was dying to get into Boy Scouts, and you couldn't get in at 11 then like you can now. You had to be 12.
That must have been really traumatic to lose your father at 11 years old.
Yeah, well, really, almost 12 years old, but it's still... we were able to... See, Harris had to go north and live with Aunt E. Grandma says, I just can't take all of you. And, of course, Harris was a little prissy, and Grandma wanted He-Man around. So, the rest of it, Mother took care of Virginia. Grandma says, look, I have nothing to do with raising women. I've raised 5, and that's all I want to raise. So Mother and Virginia slept in one bedroom, and Sam and I had a spot somewhere. I forgot where. It was upstairs. And Harris went north to live with Aunt E, who was Mother's twin sister. That's Calvin's mother. Somewhere, I think when I was about 10 years old, Grandfather Harris, my mother's daddy, gave me a Shetland pony. I was the first grandchild. And he wanted to be called Papa and not Grandfather. So since I started it out and got all of them doing it, he rewarded me with a pony, and I never will forget the day the boy rode the pony up in there to turn it over to me. And by that time, my father had brought the Grantham family down from Georgia, and we had 5 dairy cows. And my job was to bring the dairy cows up from the pasture. There was a pasture down there that goes down to Lake Franklin. And I must have been 10 or 11. It wasn't any younger than that. And I didn't get the cows up there on time. And my father took me into that little old bedroom that he and Mama had and tried to explain to me that it was hurting him worse than it was me, and I never could understand that. He tore up my tail. And the next day, I had the cows in there about 2 hours early. And from then on, they were always early, and I wasn't late to anything. And I heard him laughing, talking with the Granthams. I got the message across the bus. And I wasn't about to change anything, but that was it. Go ahead and hit that one, that's right.
Didn't you lose a dog down there in Lake Franklin too?
Yeah, we had a big old police dog. And he disappeared. We're pretty sure an alligator got him, I don't know. It's nice of you to remember that. At the time the school was up here at Roseboro, I forgot the date. I got the date when that thing was built. But a Northerner built it, and they had enough cloakroom for a school up north.
Let's drive by there.
And it became my duty sometime when we were remodeling on the school board to get rid of those cloakrooms because they just weren't being used down here. And a lot of shenanigans went on there to get your girlfriend back in there, and it was dark. Things could happen. Schoolhouse stood on this property, and we were in that building before that was built. But I'll get you. I don't know whether that's 26 or when.
That was my playground when I was in elementary school here.
Yeah.
They're still using it.
But that was the.
That's where the building was, huh?
Yeah, 2-story building.
So you were never in school in this building here then?
Oh yeah. Yes, sirree. I went through the 9th grade here. And that was about the time we had to move to, that would be about 1930, I guess.
Well, I went to school 1 through 6 here, and then when you were here, let's go by the 3rd Avenue house.
Yeah.
They had 1 through 12 at this school then.
Right.
They had everything there. Amazing. Now, why did you move to Eustis High School?
Well, the reason was that Mother was driving us back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't even have money enough to buy gas. She owed every damn filling station in town. And it just had to stop. That's all there was to it.
Mm-hmm. But when did you buy the 3rd Avenue house? Obviously after you and Mom were married.
Oh yeah, 1950 we moved in here.
Okay, stop right here. 1950? That's good. So from 1950 until when did you move out of here?
35 years, 85.
50 to 85. And this is where I lived after I was born, and Leesburg lived here until 76 when I went off to college. 613 3rd Avenue. And Mark and Sam grew up here quite a bit too. From 1950 to 61, 64, each of them. Now, what can we possibly say about St. Edward's Episcopal Church other than we actually used to all go to church together? And I was an altar boy here. I guess Mark and Sam were too.
Yeah.
And I forget when this building was built, but there was another old wooden building here for a long time. But this is right around the corner. I used to go right through the backyard to come here, and actually they had Boy Scout meetings in the assembly hall here. Our Boy Scout troop was sponsored by them.
The Bardwells were living here in that old house, and they sold it or gave it to the church.
Okay.
This is on 8th Avenue across from the football field. Mount Dora High School. We could sit on our porch, yard, watch the games. We moved in here in 1958 and moved over to 3rd Avenue in now wait a minute, 48.
Yeah, because you moved to 3rd Avenue in 1950.
1950. And lived in 3rd Avenue until 1985, total 35 years over there.
So where'd you live before you lived in this house?
We came here from Mississippi, and we were living with Aunt Louise in Gulfport and the old Little Page home place there.
That was after the war?
After the war. And before that, after the war, we were living in Crystal Springs, Mississippi for about a year and a half, and that would be around 1947. And we didn't like the situation there, so we were looking for something else, and for about a year I worked with the Extension Service at Mississippi State College, Agricultural Extension. And then they were going to give me the job to head the new market that they were building in Jackson, Mississippi, and it had already decided on me and had offered a job to me, but they said they needed to do 1 or 2 more checks, so they wrote the Grand Union Company that I had been working with in New York, and they called me immediately from New York, and he said, don't accept that job, we send you back to Florida to buy for us. They wrote the Commissioner of Agriculture there in Mississippi and told him, says, we were trying to find him, and thank you very much for finding him for you and so forth, but we're going to take him back to Florida where he belongs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
how did you afford to buy that first house there on 8th Avenue?
we did not buy that. We rented that from Mr. Quixley. I think Mr. Quixley owned the house. I'm not sure. No, we didn't. No, I'll tell you. Let me tell you about the place on 3rd Avenue, which we did buy. There was a Mrs. Barry Wells. She was a widow. She had married Dr. Wells, who was his second wife. His first wife died. And she had been renting it to some people who were fussing and wanted this and wanted that done and everything. And she owned 2 houses on Clayton Street over there. And she says, Buster, I'll sell them to you. She knew me. She was a Western Union operator back in those days. And she says, you can have them for $25,000.
Both houses?
All 3 houses. And I said, okay, I'll take them, because I figured I could sell those other 2 for some money. And everything was good. Ruth Lee, who was Uncle Harry's girlfriend, and this woman, Mrs. Wells, were buddies. And so we bought them, and then, of course, Jack wanted me to list it right away, the 2 houses on 3rd Avenue. And I said, okay, $15,000. $50,000. Oh, you'll never get that. You'll never get that. That's too high. That's the thing. I said, Jack, tell everybody it's $15,000 and that's it for 2 nice houses. They were built during the war and they were built out of 2x4s instead of 2x6s. Well, anyway, I think the first person that came in his office was a man from Vermont, and he bought them for $15,000 without batting an eye.
2 houses for $15,000?
Yeah. But now they were really little shacks now. They had a lot of work done on them in the time. So that meant that our house on 3rd Avenue cost us $10,000.
In 1950.
Yeah.
Nice ride, man. So where are we now, and how long have you been here?
We moved here in 1985. Bought this lovely piece of property for $165,000. And Gene was responsible when Mrs. Billingsley built this house about 20 years before that time. Gene asked Gene to come out and visit and see her house, and Gene did. And when she left, Gene said, Mrs. Helen, whenever you get ready to sell this house, call me. So 18 years later, Mrs. Billingsley had to sell it, get her husband in a nursing home, moved back to Tallahassee where her daughter was. So we bought it, added a bathroom on, and been very, very happy. When we bought it, we figured we'd get 10 years out of it, and we got about 15 so far.
This is 1412 Raintree Lane. See any wood ducks out there yet?
Yes, they're there every morning. And in that nest too, and they're very busy. But I don't know whether they're getting the
food?
Food. I want you to look down there and see what a covering of stuff is across there, and the food goes down beyond it and they can't see it, but they do fly down there.
Huh. Well,
I was going to leave a bowl full of it down there and see what they do.
all right. Happy birthday, Dad.
Thank you.